All righty. How you doing, brother? Good morning.
Good morning. Doing well. Got another weekend on hand before I head out to the combine, and also tomorrow doing a Dolphins Cancer Challenge. So excited about that. I'm participating for the first time, not just covering it.
Nice. I'm going to do it next year. Now that my foot is healed, I'm going to do it next year for sure. I'm gonna do it. Maybe we'll do a show one and get some of the listeners, and we can all walk or bike together or whatever it is, that kind of stuff. Let me ask you something. I'm gonna bust your balls here. Okay.
All right.
How slow is it in the off season that you're writing an article about an NFL analyst talking about the Dolphins drafting Cam Ward?
No, not the Dolphins drafting Cam Ward.
What? what was it?
Wait, what did you say?
The article you've got of
No,
Cam
it was
Ward?
talks who he.
No.
It's like two things. It's what he said about what the Dolphins could do with their pick, and then he also talks Cam Ward at the top of the draft.
I think he said a big fat guy, right?
Yeah, Tyler Booker. He has the Dolphins taking the first guard in the draft, in his mock draft. So,
what do you?
No, it was like to cover the Dolphins aspect and also the UM aspect of Cam Ward at the top of the draft. And Daniel Jeremiah did a conference call with reporters from all over. So it wasn't just like what he said randomly or like what's in his article or something. It was he did a big Zoom call with reporters from all over the nation yesterday. So I mean that's kind of like a common story though in draft prep time. Like Mel Kiper does these, Daniel Jeremiah. So they kind of get their analysis out there, and then everyone from whatever team they cover, they ask him what they think they should do with their pick, and then he answers, and then people.
The Cam Ward one is thrown in there when it's just like we have no shot at Cam Ward. It's not really part of our plans. But we'll keep talking about Cam Ward, but we have no shot at him. So, but that's the juicier part of the article, really, because it's not sexy what Dolphins will do in the first round this year, unfortunately. But
that's why I needed to get that in there, though. I know, and he's a UM guy, so he's local.
You know what's the funny part is, while it's not sexy, it's going to be fantastic for the Dolphins if they draft a guard or a defensive tackle. It might be boring, okay? And the Cam Ward stuff is juicy and it's fun to talk about, but in Dolphin land, it doesn't mean shit to us because we're not going to be part of all that. So, it's just funny how we have to talk about something that's sexy, and then unsexy really should be super sexy, actually, because the only way your offense is going to look sexy is by having fat guys on the line that are kicking people's asses. That's the only way you're going to look sexy, actually, is by getting fat.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it might not be as sexy as even an edge rusher like last year in Chop Robinson, or if you look at like Devon Achane as a third-round pick, that's a sexy pick. He's flashy, speed, and all that. But the Dolphins need to fortify the trenches. So, when I did ask Daniel Jeremiah, all right, what else? What other avenue could you see the Dolphins going? And then the next thing he said was a defensive tackle, where obviously they are strong right now with Zach Sealer, and if Calais Campbell is able to come back, you got him. But you need youth there. You need to develop some guys and depth as well, because Zach Sealer plays all those snaps, and Calais Campbell can't take on that big of a workload at his age if he were to come back. So that would be the next choice, of course. So I want to see. I mean, last year I remember being on the show saying a weight minimum for the first whatever it was two rounds, and then they went with an edge rusher, and then Patrick Paul, who really does a lot of help in reaching your weight minimum there. So yes, I want to see them. I got to come up with a number, but they got to hit a certain number of pounds that they hit with these draft picks, really getting the big guys in the trenches.
Myself, I've said, my theme for the Dolphin off season is it's all about the fat boys, so you can stop being the disorderlies. Okay, and so the fat boys were a rap group back in the day. Did you know that?
Sorry, Fat Boys were what?
A rap group back in the day. Did you know
Oh,
that?
Yes, I've heard of them. Yes, yeah, they do all the beatboxing stuff, right?
Yes, and they had a movie called The Disorderlies. So that's why I said go draft the fat boys, defensive tackle, guard, and stop being the disorderlies, because that's what that damn team is right now under Mike McDaniel. It's disorder constantly. So get your ass in order and beef up these lines right now. All right. So fans love the shiny object, right? Okay. You want to have fun and write an article? Well, you're going to release Bradley Chubb. Guess what? The Chargers are releasing Bosa. What do? Do you go after him? And then you'll have your Dolphin fan base going, it's great, but he's an injury-prone player. And that's the reason why the Chargers may be releasing Bosa. So what do you think about the local kid getting released by the Chargers if it happens?
That would be a cool thing if Joey Bosa, if Nick Bosa at some other point in time, but if any Bosa were to come back home. I mean, I covered not Joey, but Nick at the end of his high school career, and that was cool to just see.
This is Joey.
Yeah, this would be Joey. This would be Joey, of course, with the Chargers. But just speaking from the Bosa family, then I remember it was cool when Nick Bosa came back for the Super Bowl, and then he saw certain reporters that he hadn't seen since his high school days, and was like really appreciative at Super Bowl media day to just be like it felt home for him, and he sort of answered to how much he enjoyed being back in South Florida just for that one event, that one big game. So. That would be pretty cool if Joey Bosa were to come back. And I haven't gone through any of the financial gymnastics of what that would mean, what he would probably require as opposed to what you're getting Bradley Chubb for. But you're paying Bradley Chubb, right, as it stands now, as a premier edge rusher when you didn't have him all last year. Now, which Bradley Chubb are you going to get when he's now coming off another knee injury that cost him an entire season? When I spoke to him at the end of last season at Locker Cleanout Day, he was saying now this would be like a normal offseason for him as opposed to coming back from something, because he was so close to returning where he was on the verge of it. But then just when they opened up that window and it was getting toward the end, and they were kind of just like, no, he's not 100% himself. So just let it be for next season. So if whatever they have internally in that building tells them, hey, you can get something like the Bradley Chubb that you signed up for, then maybe you could just stick with him. But there's a lot of money to be gained post June 1 if there's any inkling of a feeling that it's not going to be the same Bradley Chubb.
You're convinced that Javon Holland is gone, right?
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't see truly a plausible scenario where the Dolphins are bringing back Javon Holland next year. I think he's going to be making a lot of money, and I don't think the Dolphins are going to be the ones to pay it up. Not through the franchise tag, which I remember we were both stunned when we saw what the number was. It went up to like 19 or something for safeties, and it's only going to be higher now with the salary cap coming in higher than expected. So I don't see it with the Dolphins, and David Mulligetta, his agent, is going to get him paid somewhere. So and the Dolphins just don't have that kind of money to just throw out there for something that is not a sure thing, and coming off the season that he just had.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just one of those where, like, man, this sucks, because if he can recover from those knee problems from 2 years ago and get back to form, somebody is going to get themselves one hell of a player. Now, This could be Luka Doncic thing. It could be, okay, well, the Mavs were convinced that his weight and lack of conditioning would be an issue, and maybe that's what it will be for the Lakers down the line. Maybe that's what the Dolphins were convinced, that, hey, he's not going to recover from these injuries, and he's not going to be the same again. And you give him that big money, and he never ends up materializing back to being what you thought he was going to be. So right now, it's a really tough gamble to take. And hindsight is going to kill the Dolphins or help the Dolphins, right? Because none of us really know what's going to happen. So if Holland turns into a hell of a player, they're going to get criticized. And if Holland doesn't, they're going to say, okay, they dodged a bullet.
Yeah. And then, you think like to Rob Hunt, where he was never injured, had some hamstring issues that final year, that contract year toward the end of the season. And then I don't know how much that would play into it. I mean, I think everyone expected he would be back and just fine. But, just when you do see that one time where he gets injured, which would be the same thing for Javon Holland, because he was always, like, all his life healthy. I remember, like, early in his career, him talking about how, I've never experienced an injury. And then he has those issues pop up to both knees, like can't even compensate with one compared to the other. Then, you just never know how it's going to hit. So, maybe he does turn into, like, similar to Rob Hunt, goes and plays tremendously somewhere else. But just right now, I don't think it's something you can do. And then maybe, like you were talking about, maybe there's some regret not paying up for Rob Hunt now, as Dolphins are in line to really invest at the guard position, which you just had a really good one and had to let him go. Maybe there will be, if you do see Javon Holland turn into everything you anticipated when you first drafted him.
Yeah, it's a mindset that fans and those of us in media, and it seems like now people in the front office here, the Heat have adjusted to it. This is what you have to pay. Okay, well, then we'll pay Dragic this, we'll pay Tyler this, because that's what the market bears. You got to do it, unfortunately. And it seems like in this sport, we tend to struggle with the reality of the money going. Look at how much the cap is going up again. What's it going up? Over $20 million, right? 20 something, right?
From 20 something from 255 to between 277 to 281 is what Dan Graziano reported.
And we struggle with the reality of this is now the market. And we all gave the Dolphins the break of not signing Hunt because, no, you can't pay a guard $20 million. Well, guess what? We're all idiots. Let's just all admit, okay, the Dolphins have to admit to themselves, hey, we screwed up. Media can't be critical because we all were like, yeah, no, you can't do it. No. We were all wrong on this. And we need to adjust a little bit and deal with sometimes the reality is what it is. And what you can't do is ruin the fact that you did find a hell of a player. Don't let him walk out the door, bro. Don't let him walk out the door. Keep him. Find a way to keep him. And maybe you get a break down the line on the next contract because he's older and he gives you a bit of a break. You already got a break the first 4 years, right? Because you got him cheaper. Well, you should have paid. Now, that's a lesson learned for all of us now, the Rob Hunt thing. Maybe we got to look at it next time a little different when it happens with somebody else.
You know where there's an even bigger example that I just thought of, and safety position itself. Brandon Jones, he had a hell of a year with the Denver Broncos. You groomed him. You brought him up over 4 years, let him walk in free agency, and he was affordable. The Broncos got him for 3 years, $20 million. You look at the number that Javon Holland is going to get, if what the franchise tag is at safety, what Javon Holland is going to get paid. You could have just kept Brandon Jones for that figure. That one's not talked about enough. We talk a lot about Andrew Van Ginkel in the season he had, of course, with good reason.
This is why I'm torn with the front office. This is why they can find talent, bro.
Yeah.
They can find talent. But if you keep switching coaches, you keep losing players because philosophies change. And unfortunately, the head coach you hired, this guy doesn't have it. He doesn't matter what you do in the front office. You can have a great offseason. He doesn't know how to cook in the kitchen, unfortunately. And that's where I have I love Brandon. I kept, I remember me and Omar would go back and forth because he didn't like Brandon. I did. And Brandon got better and better every year. And to me, that is very, very important, that when you see a player getting better and better and better, and it's a shame that they ended up losing him because, again, you could use a guy like that, right now. It'd be big.
Yeah. And Brandon, a lot of it also came to because he wasn't necessarily the safety fit for Vic Fangio's scheme last year. So then he's switching schemes, and he actually did all right in it. When he was called upon and Javon Holland got injured and Brandon Jones had to step up, he held it down at that position, but he was drafted for the previous defense of being aggressive with the safeties and all the blitzing and stuff that he would do. But man, what a season he had in Denver. Triple-digit tackles over there, and really played his ass off. He was ranked highly graded by Pro Football Focus and everything. So, yeah, that's one that's not really talked about it as much.
Imagine if Weaver gets a job and leaves, and then you have another defensive coordinator, and that forces changes, dude.
Yeah,
and it does not allow you to get any kind of chemistry going, unfortunately, and that just. It's not productive, man. It's just not productive to continue to change coaches because there's a trickle-down effect to it. And it ends up affecting you as a front office too because, Flo comes in and he can't get along with Minka. Now you got to get rid of Minka. And you thought Holland would be the answer, and now you're going to lose Holland. And in the first place, if Flo gets along with Minka, you would have never had to go through the Holland mess now. You would have had your safety in place, but you switch coaches, and now you lose Minka, and you ended up getting rid of Flo anyway. It just, whatever.
Yeah. At least the good thing is it does now, you are retaining Anthony Weaver. So now you will have him for a second season, and then he'll be a prime candidate next year. Now, that's usually the big problem, like something that teams say, well, that's a good problem to have, is when you're doing well enough where you have coaches to go elsewhere. The problem is the Dolphins aren't backing it up with the playoff success that, like, the Detroit Lions lost in the divisional round, but, we're the number one seed. They got to the NFC Championship last year. The Eagles, there was one year where they lost both coordinators after they made the Super Bowl. It's like, yeah, those teams, the 49ers have had this happen. But yeah, those teams are, because they're making deep playoff runs and are winning their division and at the top, the Dolphins are still in this sort of quandary but then you still almost have your defensive coordinator poached. But fortunately, the Dolphins will have Weaver back. So actually, it's the first time in a long time that the Dolphins will have both coordinators. Well, actually, so offensive and defensive coordinator, but you're not bringing back a special teams coordinator. So if you just go by all coordinators, then you're not bringing back all of them. But between offense and defense, it's the first time in a long time that it's both of them coming back in a year.
Yeah, good shit, man. All right, what do you got going on in the Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I wrote a fascinating story on what Daniel Jeremiah had to say separately on the Dolphins pick and also on Cam Ward at the top of the draft, to be clear. Today I'll be writing about I think the prospect I'm going to write on that I talked to at Pete Bomarito's is Hayden Connor, the guard from Texas, who actually I'll go ahead and reveal what's going to be in there, is that that Texas took some plays from the Dolphins this past year is what he told me. So maybe could be a fit there if Texas was running a lot of the same concepts, outside zone. So maybe a guard that the Dolphins could find later in the draft. Remember, Mike McDaniel was at the Texas Pro Day. It was all those viral clips of him talking to Xavier Worthy last year. So maybe some connections there. And then I'll cover Dolphins Cancer Challenge. There's always going to be interviews with maybe it's Jalen Phillips out there, and then it's right into the combine starting next week as we transition.
There you go. Freeze your ass off. All right. Follow him on Twitter at David Furones _ and catch his work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. David, have a fantastic weekend, my brother. We will catch up on Tuesday, my friend. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You got it. And, of course, Welt Rheaume. Nobody better than Jeff Welt and Daniel Rheaume. They are the dynamic duo you want. And, by the way, with the laws we have now in Florida, they favor the corporations. They don't favor you. So the most important thing you do is hire the right lawyers, because if you don't have the right lawyers, you're going to be in a really tough situation. Jeff Welt and Daniel Rheaume, they are the right lawyers. Lots of our listeners have already hired them over the last couple of years. I myself have experienced it, and it was amazing. Even one of our listeners up in Orlando hired Jeff Welt and Daniel Rheaume. A bunch of our listeners out in the West Coast, unfortunately, went through some of the storms. They hired Jeff Welt and Daniel Rheaume after going through these brutal storms that we went through the last hurricane season. So bankruptcy also becoming an issue for folks because they're ringing up their credit cards. 954-966-4646. Personal injury, homeowner property damage. Call Daniel Rheaume and Jeff Welt. And by the way, the consultation is completely free. 954-966-4646.